I'm hitting the button.
Hit the button.
This week on MS Refresh, it's the Power Platform Showcase. Matt and I talk about the latest updates to services like Power Automate and Power Apps and more. And a fun new tour of the newest addition to the Power Platform family, Power Pages. All that and more. Subscribe to stay in the know. This is the MS Refresh Show. Hi there, and welcome to the Matt and Sean 365 Refresh Show. This is episode 64 for the work week of June 27th, 2022, and our first episode dedicated to the Power Platform news. So, coming to you from the West Coast, my name is Sean Bugler.
And from the East Coast, my name is Matt Wade.
Matt Wade, how are you? Minus democracy burning right before our very eyes.
I'm
Setting
doing well.
just a giant asterisk on everything. We thought there were already 100 asterisks after the question, how are you? We are tacking on one more.
I'm doing quite well. How are you, Sean?
It's hard to hear you from this giant soapbox that I'm standing on.
How are you, Sean? You're so high
I'm
up.
well. I was my wife and I, Kelly, we went to Yosemite over the weekend. We went camping.
Nice.
So that was a nice. It's so close. It is infuriating how infrequently we go. It's like a 3-hour drive. So we just kind of pop out there. We throw a tent on the ground, and it's the best. It is. There's a reason it is not just one of the best national parks in the country. It's one of the best parks in the world. It is just beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Have you been?
Not to Yosemite. So I don't get to the West Coast very frequently, but now that I've been going to the Microsoft 365 conference since it restarted after the pandemic, I've had the opportunity to do some stuff when I'd hit Vegas. So the first time I went to the Vegas one in the last couple of years, I spent a couple of days in Zion. And like as an East Coast guy, like, yeah, we have the Adirondack Mountains, but it's nothing compared to what you guys have out West. So it's one of those things where I think a lot of us look at you people and just go, if you're not there every weekend doing something, you're just wasting away at your resources here. It's just insanity.
I thought you were going to critique us for continuing to set ourselves on fire, but that's also a fair point.
Mother Nature started that trend before we were around.
That's true. And you can definitely see it. Like Yosemite got back in 2013. You can still kind of see the side effects of that. But setting all that aside, it was wonderful. It was a breath of fresh air to celebrate being at the midway point of the final semester of me in school. And I will never do this again. I'm never going back to school, not Yosemite. I will go back to it.
Oh, same. I look back on my life choices. I am so happy that I got my master's when I did, because there's absolutely no way that while I was working, I would ever be able to go to school. I just don't have the brain power after a day of work. People
talk to me about it, about going back to school after I get my bachelor's here, the same way I think they talk to me about potentially having kids. They're like, oh, you'll change your mind. And I'm like, I don't think that's
I can't speak to the kid ones. And I get that, that's a legit thing with, human love and whatnot. But like when it comes to education, absolutely not. My education is catching up on this type of stuff, keeping me, svelte for my tech job where my fingers don't get used very much and they're nice and soft and supple. It's.
Our viewers are my children. Hello.
You sound like a teacher. Miss Johnson, do you have any kids? No, you're all my children.
I am a teacher at heart. I feel that.
Yep. All
right. Well, a lot of really cool stuff to talk about. Really excited to get into it. You ready for the news?
Absolutely.
This is the news.
Oh, damn it. It was so close. Close enough. Let's get into it. Power Automate. Since its rebrand from Flow to Power Automate, the service has maintained its original URL of flow.microsoft.com. That's set to change in the coming weeks, according to a blog post by program manager Kishore Sabeti. In the weeks and months to come, Microsoft will steadily transition variations of the URL to the new powerautomate.microsoft.com and powerautomate.microsoft.us for both commercial and government customers, respectively. AI Builder, the collection of artificial intelligence tools available in both Power Apps and Power Automate, picked up a massive update earlier this month. The Intelligent Document Processing function, or IDP, now supports what the company is calling, quote, unstructured document processing, end quote. While previously, Microsoft's Power Automate could easily read and extract content from structured forms, meaning that the important information was always roughly in the same place, this new update enables flows to pull information from free-form documents that have no set structure. Think paragraphs of text. Examples of where this could be useful include contracts, statements of work, financial or medical reports, and more. The update's currently supporting only English while it's in preview, although, of course, the hope is that it will inevitably expand to more languages. Sticking with AI Builder for just a minute more, at their last developer conference, that's Build, last month, Microsoft announced that image classification with Loeb, which I had never heard of, but apparently Loeb is Microsoft's free machine learning model builder, is now generally available for use. So now you can train a model to recognize specific images, meaning you can show it a bunch of pictures of souffles and say, this is a souffle. And it will actually build a model around that you can then export directly to AI Builder for use in Power Automate Power Automate Flows and Power Apps apps. Adding Power Automate Flows to your Power Apps just got a whole lot easier, according to a blog post by program manager Ravon Lingard. Whether you're creating a new flow or adding existing ones to a Power Automate Power Apps app, something that hasn't always been the most intuitive process, this new experience available in the Power Apps Canvas Studio streamlines the actions into a new central pane that's available now. Sticking with Power Automate for just a minute more, the ability to restore recently deleted flows is now available as long as you're an admin and you can use PowerShell, both of Matt's favorite requirements. And lastly, for Power Automate specifically, in case you missed it, early in May, Microsoft announced support for bulk resubmit and bulk cancellation of Power Automate flows. Many citizen developers know the pain of learning how to build a flow just to realize that you've inadvertently triggered the same action 1,000 times in less than a minute. Before now, that meant individually canceling each and every one of them outright or deleting the flow. Likewise, many of you know the pain of a flow breaking and missing on tons of different flow runs to separate triggered flows that you now need to have individually resubmitted over and over and over again. Well, no more. Simply navigate to the run history page of a flow, select as many runs as you like, and select resubmit or cancel flow runs, presuming you fixed whatever the problem was. So that's Power Automate here. Let's jump over to Power Apps. During Build, Microsoft's Ryan Cunningham, that's the VP of Power Apps at Microsoft, announced a preview of what they're calling Express Design, a new Power Apps feature with the ability to create web and mobile apps from sketches, pictures of forms, and whiteboards, even Figma prototypes for those of you that have used the design program Figma. Paired with features like Power Apps Ideas, powered by AI language model GPT-3, the idea here is to use AI and machine learning to further cut down on the number of steps it takes to go from nothing to something in the business app development process. The latest pillar of the Microsoft Power Platform was announced at Build last month, Power Pages, an evolution of Power Apps portals. The service is aimed at low-code and professional developers and offers the ability to create external-facing websites and business applications. In preview to start, the service is available to try for free now, with general availability planned for later in the year. In fact, we'll talk about it in just a little bit. Wrap for Power Apps, a feature that enables makers to convert Power Apps into true mobile apps, is now generally available. With it, you can create and code sign mobile applications to run as true iOS or Android applications, creating a seamless experience for users. Just tap to open the app. Power Virtual Agents saw a couple of updates as well, including a new unified authoring experience that brings together the power of Microsoft's Azure Bot Framework and Power Virtual Agents low-code interface. Power Virtual Agents now also offers up a complete interactive voice response, or IVR builder, allowing us to create full end-to-end virtual agents that support, interestingly enough, full telephone interactions. And lastly, not to leave Power BI out in the cold, A new Power BI integration for PowerPoint was announced last month at Build. With it, the new add-in supports what Microsoft is calling Power BI data storytelling. Users will have the option to broadcast data live within a presentation, offering up a real-time glance at reports or freezing it at a point in time to avoid confusing the narrative. Like Power BI reports in the web, these embedded reports are interactive and support updating slicers and changing filters to tailor the data to the context of the meeting. It'll be interesting to see how this evolves to support live data collection from, I don't know, audiences and, live contexts. Watch out, Tableau. Yes. And that's the news.
That was the news.
We need to get maybe like something like when you lower your blinds and you raise your blinds, maybe you can have Google do that for you. That'd be good. Also, can we talk about the plant behind you is now, okay, was the background blue that you had? That was great. You're going to have to pick plants that just aren't green, okay?
That's, I appreciate the feedback. I'm going to take that back to the team.
No, oh, that hurt. You twisted.
Before we get into it here, Akio posts, I wish this channel will answer questions. Winky face, winky face. Well, Akio, good news. We have and always will answer audience questions. And we do so live, as well as if you submit questions in advance of these showings, we'll address those questions as well. So if you do have questions, and this, of course, is true to all of our friends that are, all of my children that are watching this live, jump in, ask questions. If you've got any, have at it. We would love to hear from you. And of course, we'll always be happy to address them in the comments as well after this show is posted. All right. Well, that was a lot of news.
I was very impressed with the amount of stuff you pulled out of nowhere. That was excellent.
Out of nowhere.
There's never any Power Platform like dedicated place to find stuff.
This is fundamentally, I think, the difference between like the greater Microsoft 365 ecosystem and the Power Platform specifically, is that they have their own little enclave where information is posted. And if you're like you and I, where our whole world up to now has really kind of been SharePoint and kind of the periphery that have built around that, we've really only been trained to look at the roadmap and Twitter, both of which are really valuable resources. But on the Power Platform side of things, they have a really deeply entrenched infrastructure of leveraging Microsoft Docs. So that's docs.microsoft.com, as well as their blog posts. So there's a ton of information that flies under the radar for people like you and I, if you're not paying attention to both of those spaces.
Not a fan.
That
was a very good news segment. My only main comment here, because I know you have a bunch of geeking out to do this evening, but the first one is I cannot wait to find the first situation right after we decide to roll out Power Platform in my organization, when that rename of the Flow dot to Power Automate dot works like a charm in commercial, but will totally break in government, because it will try to route us through some .com account and we won't be able to log in and everything will break. Like currently, we can't use Microsoft Whiteboard in the government space because it's trying to auth us through whiteboard.com instead of whiteboard.us.
No.
And that will happen. I can guarantee it.
I'm really glad you brought this up, because to that end, the new URLs are live increasingly for tenants. So you can actually go to powerautomate.microsoft.com for those of you in commercial. And I think it's gov. Oh, we'll throw it in the show notes, like gov.powerautomate.us or something like that, .microsoft.us. So you can actually go through right now. And if it can't get through to that site, it'll actually redirect you to Flow dot. And it'll show a red banner that says that, hey, we're moving to this site that you tried to get to and you can't get to it. So that's going to be a problem. So figure it out.
So when I'm in a good mood at work at some point this week, and I really want to like be tempered and bring myself back down to real life, I should just try hitting a couple random URLs or links throughout the Power Automate experience. All right. Sounds good. That's what I was.
I mean, that's pretty much my, my everyday. Was there anything that jumped out to you that you thought was particularly interesting?
I mean, there are a few, but like not to take up time during this session, because I really want to see the stuff.
Sure,
some stuff keyed up, and I really want to see that, because this is, for me, this is a learning opportunity, and you're just kicking back.
That.
Yeah, especially, well, not just because of that, but because Power Platform has become such a big portion of my work life at this point. We're getting it set up, doing some showcasing, testing, kind of stepping through all this, the little, the portions where it's like, wait, they did that? Why would they do that? That's crazy, right? Like those kinds of things. So I feel like I'm finally earning my wings on the Power Platform side, and this will get me further.
Well, here we go. We're off to the races here. So, gang, we're going to go ahead and take this opportunity to talk about specifically what's happening with Power Pages. As we mentioned in the news, launching later this year, Microsoft has announced Power Pages available in preview now. It's the latest pillar of the Microsoft Power Platform. Microsoft's preferred term for products in early active development is preview. So if you hear that every now and again, what that's saying is, hey, this is new, it's early, it's rough. So hang in there with us as we build this out here. I want to take this opportunity to just kind of go through what the Power Pages experience is. But before we do that, I'm actually going to go ahead and take this opportunity to highlight just that's not me. This is me. Hi, me. So if you're familiar with Power Apps, Microsoft's low-code app development service, you're going to start to get a sense of what is being made available here. I'm going to quote from Priya Vaidyanathan. I'm so sorry, Vidya. I'm so sorry, Priya. I tried. She's a product lead on the Power Pages team. Priya wrote that it's an enterprise-grade, low-code platform for creating, hosting, and administrating rich, interactive, data-first business web apps worldwide. There's a lot to unpack there. But again, if you're familiar with Power Apps, you already have a sense of what they're kind of gunning here for, which is this idea of a visual click and drag and drop experience that allows you to build not apps as you can in Power Apps, but web-based experiences here. And that's really, really cool, but not just web-based experiences here, external-facing ones. Now, this might sound a little bit like Power Apps Portals if you're familiar with that, which was a low-code extension of Power Apps that was designed to allow external users to interact directly with Dataverse. And that's because that's invariably what Power Pages are. Microsoft even says as much in their own documentation that Power Pages is an evolution of Power Apps Portals. One of the big challenges of Portals, though, was that its experience wasn't necessarily very user-friendly for those of us who are a little bit more familiar with like low-code experiences. And with the Power Apps name attached to it, we kind of expected that would be the case. So that was kind of a bugaboo all around there. So it was a little limiting in that. Now, Power Pages is taking on everything that Power Apps Portals was, which was a lot of pro developer content. And it's not going to lose that. There's a web API, an integration to Visual Studio Code, support for the Liquid markup language, JavaScript, CSS, and more that typical developers will no doubt be relieved to have access to. So I want to go ahead and take this opportunity to jump in and let's actually take a look at what building Power Pages is all about. So what I've done here is I've navigated to make.powerpages.microsoft.com. Anybody that's got access to an active Microsoft 365 tenant can jump into it for free right now and go ahead and click Get Started. So the very first thing it's going to do is it's going to prompt you with the question of whether or not you've built a website before. It doesn't tell you, have you built with Squarespace or anything like that. So you can say, you can use the context you'd like. If you want to see them kind of roll out the full red carpet, you can say, no, I've never built one before. You can also tell them, yes, I've created one versus yes, I've built them professionally. And again, all this is going to do is provide just a little bit of an indicator as to how experienced, how much hand-holding are you going to need as part of this process. So I'm going to say, yeah, I've created one before. And right out of the gate, it's going to give you a couple of templates. And this is a marquee difference from what we saw in the Power Apps Portals, where it just kind of dumped you into an empty canvas with some pre-populated information. This is going to, much like the SharePoint Lookbook, give you some scenario-based context. So you can choose from the scheduling tab, progress tracking, application submission. The idea here, again, is to try and showcase what Power Pages might be used for. And again, it's all through the lens of external-facing content here. Now, there are only 2 templates available to start. I know you see 4, but if you take a little look closer, you can see here that both Building Permit Application Portal and the new Employee Onboarding Checklist are both marked as coming soon. I'm personally really excited about this new Employee Onboarding Checklist. I think this is going to be huge because you're talking about these individuals that are inevitably going to become part of your organization and get access to internal resources, but don't currently, meaning that we need some mechanism to share external content to these future internal individuals. So I'm really looking forward to that. Now, with any template, as you jump in here, it's going to kind of tell you what the core elements are. It's also going to tell you what the intent is. Now, there's nothing that these templates provide that you can't recreate yourself with a blank template, but it's just a really great way to, especially if you're like me and you're just getting started with it, get a sense of what's possible. And you'll also be able to see what the mobile experience is going to look like as compared to the desktop experience, which is pretty cool. Again, as you're trying to take a look through the eyes of what the user experience is going to be. Now, in this instance, I'm going to go ahead and just choose the default design template here. I'm going to go ahead and give it a really creative name. Project Coffee Bean here, which is going to be an external facing project. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave a boring name here. Now it's going to ask you to choose an environment. So you can choose to select from an existing environment if you'd like. Or you can create a trial environment here. And it looks like I have found bug number 1.
Bug.
Now, remember, as we talked about this idea of this being in preview, it is going to be rough around the edges. And in fact, Microsoft is explicit in saying not to use this for production scenarios here, just because they are still building it out.
What was the issue? Going for a different environment?
When opening up the selected existing environment, seeing the existing environments and then not selecting one. Now, one thing I am going to go ahead and do here is I'm going to create a trial environment, which most people in most organizations can do. I'm going to go ahead and click done. It's going to take about a minute for this to create here. So I want to take this opportunity as this is being created to highlight a couple of questions that have popped up as I've been looking through this. Licensing is the big one. Right now, there's no word on what licensing will look like. Today, you can build new Power Pages sites for free. But Microsoft is pretty clear that's a temporary perk while they finish building the service and no doubt figuring out how much they can charge for it. Today, Power Apps portals for context, which is the thing that is being built and evolved into Power Pages. Right now, that all leverages Power Apps portals licensing. I'm sorry, that leverages Power Apps licensing. So there's a per app plan, which is $5 per user per month. I'm sorry, $5 per user per app per month. Ugh. Or the per user plan, which is $20 per user per month. The difference being that with the $5 per app plan, it's $5 per app or portal. And for the per user plan, that's $20 per user per month for as many apps and as many portals. So it'll be interesting to see. I would undoubtedly expect that we'll probably see, cut to Sean. Hi, it's me. Undoubtedly, we're going to see, damn, webcam is nodding at me. Undoubtedly, what we're going to see here is probably licensing that is a lot more familiar for those of you that are familiar with Salesforce communities, because this is almost exactly what Salesforce communities are. So stay tuned on that one. Again, this is hitting general availability later this year, so we'll start to see a little bit more of that as we go along here. So as it's finally created the site here, it's applied the template that we've chosen here. It's dropped us into the design studio. And if you've built a Power Apps app before, this is going to look really familiar. It's going to take you on a brief tour here. Going to highlight all the different areas here. Now, one of the things that you're going to see as we're going through this is not just is it similar to what we saw in Power Apps in the Canvas Studio, but it's also going to be really similar for those of you that have worked with SharePoint. And that's because they actually brought some of the designers from the SharePoint team that helped implement the modern experience in SharePoint over to help create this experience. So there's going to be a lot of similarities.
Concept.
This idea of consistent look and feel, consistent navigational constructs. So I'm taking a look at a web page right now. And again, this is just the generic one. It's created for me here. And one of the big things is just being able to click and interact with it. So again, as I'm clicking and interacting with content, we're seeing the floating toolbars here. I'm going to go ahead and toss a name in here. But I'm also seeing the ability to add additional structure. So as I go ahead and hover over these respective spaces, I can see a little plus icon and take a look. If, again, you've worked with the modern SharePoint experience, this is going to feel identical. And that's because, again, they're using that same consistent design language here. Now, this is all web-based. So this is all going to be something where I can go ahead and choose like 2-column structure here. And things will be able to flow appropriately as they scale from desktop to tablet and to mobile. Now, in both instances here, as you take a look, I'm hovering over. Not all of these views are available yet. So I'm seeing here that the tablet view is not available yet. The mobile view is not available yet, but you can still preview the web experience and see how it flows in the browser. So we can take a look at that in just a brief moment here. But for now, I'm going to go ahead, just toss in a button here.
Can we talk about how clearly somebody on the Power Platform side got to push the word component versus web part? Just throwing that out there.
It is interesting to see, and I'm sure there's some deeply entrenched logic about we have to differentiate somehow.
This is the Power Platform, damn it.
Components. All right, I'm just going to go ahead, and everything points to Google. All roads lead to Google. Now, as one of the things that you'll see here is that it is taking on a pretty consistent style throughout this year. So you're not seeing a ton of variety in terms of the ability to change colors. This is a really opinionated design experience, much like the modern SharePoint experience. So again, it's all being taken from the theme of the site, which can be dictated using the style component over here on the left rail. So you can choose what the color palette for the site is going to be. You can choose what the font styles are going to be for titles versus headings, and so on and so forth, even down to what the margins and spacing are going to be here. Now, all of this is still in development here. So you're going to see wordings change from bit to bit. You're going to see options expand, but it's really, really cool to kind of see that peek behind the curtain here and the ability to quickly swap out between some of the original styling templates that are being made available here.
I want some of this stuff to come back to SharePoint.
Yeah, so that is something that I was thinking about as we were going through, as I was starting to go through this here, is there's some interesting concepts. Now, obviously, you can change the themes and things to that effect here, but you don't have this kind of granular control of being able to create a theme in the UI. You have to go through PowerShell right now, which is kind of a bummer, right? So I'm hoping that we see some lessons learned flow back the other way here. I'm going to go ahead and just jump back to my pages here. Creating pages is pretty straightforward. So you can see you've got your main navigation here and versus other pages. And the fundamental difference between the two is that your main navigation elements here are all going to show up in the navigation, as opposed to other pages, which are only linked to or arrived at in specific contexts, like the page not being found, navigating to a site URL that doesn't exist, the 404, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and just create another fresh page here. Landing page here. Not just a landing page, the landing page. Now, in all of these different contexts, whether it's previewing, whether it's creating new content, all of this is still a little bit slow going as they figure out what's going on here. But one thing I want to take this opportunity to highlight now that we've jumped into a new page is something that we saw just a glimpse of when we were taking a look at views, which is the ability to interact with the actual HTML content here. So for those of you like me who are ace HTML individuals because you were deeply immersed in the MySpace scene, you have the ability to kind of take it a step further here. And so we're seeing a really interesting split between the low code experience, which is that what you see is what you get UI, versus the professional developer side of things. And I don't know if I mentioned it in the news, but I'll mention it here, that there's already a Visual Studio Code integration. So you can leverage workflows that are much more familiar to the average professional developer than they are to bums like you and myself and Matt. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to jump to the left rail here because we see the ability to create pages, the ability to dictate the styling across the site. But the heart and soul of what Power Pages is all about is the ability to surface data. These aren't just websites necessarily. They're data-first business applications. And so this all interacts beautifully with Dataverse, which I will be the first one to tell you, I don't have a ton of insight on Dataverse because I have just not had the time to dive into it and become an expert in it. But the integration with it makes it feel much more approachable than any other aspect of the Power Platform so far. This feels a lot more like, dare I say it, Access, which unfortunately I know a lot more about. So this is really...
What database do you typically use?
I am team SharePoint List.
Oh, God.
And this is actually a great opportunity to talk about a really big sticking point on the difference between Power Apps and Power Pages. So a question that that surfaced for me and one that I dove into to try and understand a little bit more so was whether SharePoint would be available as a data source or Power Pages. And the answer surprisingly, is sort of. SharePoint was not available as a Power Apps portal data source in any capacity. However, Power Pages will support uploading and displaying content from SharePoint libraries. Microsoft List support is absent, however. No doubt this is to avoid an already very real challenge in that many people, myself included, already push lists to their limit, using them as simple database sources for Power Apps. As many of our colleagues like to say, Microsoft Lists is not a relational database, to which I always reply, over my dead body. Say it to my face. So you have the ability to create Dataverse tables directly within the UI, which is great, as well as the ability to loop in other tables that already exist within Dataverse, as well as the ability to interact with the various data sets, create views, create forms that can then be brought back into Power Apps pages. So there's some really cool options within this here. Now, there's one last thing that I want to highlight here before I bring it back to basics here. Not only is there, of course, the ability to create sections, but much in the same way that there are components, the ability to create, let me see. I'm going to go ahead and just click add here. The ability to, of course, add text, buttons, images, and so on here. Video caught my eye, however, because video, again, was one of those, it's kind of a natural sticking point. This is something really, really valuable for websites, for external faced content here. So, of course, there's YouTube. Of course, there's the video URL. Now, Matt, is Microsoft Stream, from your perspective, an external facing video platform?
No, absolutely not.
Interesting, right? So Microsoft Stream is available as an option here. Now, I went ahead and clicked on it here, and clicked on the eye to try and get a better sense of what this is talking about here. So it says to add Microsoft Streams video, go to that video, copy the complete URL found.
Oh my God! And the Microsoft Streams web browser.
Now, take a step further here, and you'll see here in the hint text, https://www.msstreams.com. Now, I've never seen that URL. Matt, have you seen that URL before?
Nope. No, that's new.
So I thought that was new too. And as any intrepid explorer
go to it.
Go to it. Matt, I would love for you to go to it. I'm going to go ahead and cut to you here.
Cannot be reached.
Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and open up a new tab here. HTTPS.
This is thrilling TV.
MS Streams. MSstreams.com. So that app wasn't owned by anybody. I'm going to go ahead and just disclose that now. That app was not owned by anybody.
That URL, you mean?
Yeah. That domain.
All right, so it's time to purchase it.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. I should probably have said.
Did you buy it?
That app wasn't owned by anybody. But at 2:37 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on June 27th, I bought.
Who are you, John Oliver? Like, what is this?
I bought the domain msstreams.com.
I love it. This is one of the many reasons why I adore you so. It would have been perfect though if at this point you had already replaced the homepage with something like "Welcome to Sean's World" or something like that.
So the DNS is updating. Unfortunately, I didn't find this in time. So the DNS is updating. It will redirect to my personal website.
Oh, that is great. I can't wait for I can't wait for Cunningham to reach out to you like, Sean, we get it. It was funny. Well done. Give me.
They can have it. It was $7.13 well spent.
I'm pretty sure the going rate is now at least $70,000 a year. I'm pretty sure.
I think that's cyber squatting, so I'm not threatening that. But I will say that for the low price of acknowledgement and swag, I'm happy to see.
Hey, there you go. Your face on every book bag that they give out at the Power Platform conference.
I'll settle for a sticker of my face given away at the to be announced Microsoft Ignite or the Microsoft Power Platform conference happening later this year.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
So that's great. Power Pages. It's a quick tour, and I would encourage everybody that's interested in taking a look at it to go do so because it's free. And as I mentioned, there's no licensing information about it available. There's a lot of speculation about whether it's going to be views or authenticated users. We won't know until later this year when it goes live. Again, presumably at the to be announced Microsoft Ignite, or even more likely, if it's ready, the Power Platform Conference happening in September in Florida.
That's true.
But it is, it's going to continue to renew. So I think right now it's promised to renew for up to 160 or 180 days. Just don't fall in love with it if it ends up being, wildly expensive.
Yeah, right. Well, can I ask it like the dumb foundation level question here?
Please.
You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to answer that. I'm going to ask it anyway.
All right, fine.
I guess what is the You're not going to build. I would assume you're not going to build your actual public facing website with this tool. I would think this isn't like a Wix replacement, right? This is more of an entry point for certain business processes. I would think. Because originally Power Apps Portals was meant to be that public-facing form tool, right? Or app tool, however you want it, where form becomes app as a gray area, right?
Sure.
But is this sort of just a little bit on top of that? Because I feel like the people that own a public-facing website in the organization, any organization, 100 people or more, there's probably a dedicated person or team even for that public-facing website. There might be a dedicated developer, somebody that uses probably Webflow or WordPress, right? Is there...
Right.
Platform of choice, and then the communications folks and the brand people that ensure that the look and feel is going to be consistent, and the marketing people who ensure that they can pull the customers in and get that funnel going. But I feel like this is going to be adding that much more, angst to that team, because now they're going to have to deal with all these people that are just setting up these things that they could have just had pages on the existing public-facing websites. I don't know. Have you heard much discussion about what's the use case implication here?
Yeah. So the idea here, and in fact, I'm glad you brought this up, because Microsoft was explicit about this when it was announced, that this isn't necessarily being positioned as a Squarespace competitor or a personal website landing page, or even the business's de facto homepage. It's being designed as the home for data first content. So you think about company programs that customers would like to come in and apply for or make a purchase from. One of the template examples is booking time with experts at a financial institution. So there's a lot of these. There's no e-commerce positioning just yet, but it's not hard to see that extension. Whether it's not the e-commerce component, but maybe it's like the NetSuite. It's the check on your order status and things to that effect. Maybe there are integrations that tie into that. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of opportunity inside of that. But interestingly enough, in the early days of them announcing it, one of the first examples they gave were government programs, where you need to be able to create really kind of low cost infrastructure, low lift infrastructure where individuals can go and get information that they need quickly to apply for programs.
I was thinking of the local health departments here in each county in New York and how they were rolling up their COVID numbers, right? And how they had, a lot of that stuff needed to be public facing so that we as the public could see, progress, whatever data that was important. And then, New York State Health Department did their best to try to roll that stuff up, but they weren't always fully successful. So sometimes you had to go to your local county to see that data. And, the more local you get in government, usually I don't want to totally generalize here, but a lot of times the less technical or the less the lesser skill set there is, because it's usually with one person that's doing the data crunching and oh, by the way, you're going to be the webmaster for this too.
And I think that that's exactly it. Is ultimately there's this acknowledgement that the further down in scale you get, the more important low code platforms like this are. Yeah. And so me at a government organization that has 360 to 400 people in any given moment, this is huge, because it allows us to maybe not completely independently, maybe we still bring in an external consultant or, subject matter expert, but the ability to stand up public access programs that'll let people apply for, discount programs or, submit eligibility for certain programs. There's some really great opportunities that start with how do we reach the people who need this most, and not have to think necessarily so much about, the technical aspects of how do we get out there. We get to focus more on what we are good at, which is the policy side of things.
Yeah, definitely. That's really cool. That was a great demo. Super appreciate that, because I found a lot of value out of it. And I'm sure many others would too, because I haven't played with this yet. I only saw a little bit of the demo stuff from Build, but like everybody else, we only have so much time to take a look at in-depth sessions when we're not actually at a conference. these days. So that was really good. I appreciate that. That was
Yeah.
a very nice intro or first time on the Power Platform showcase, and that really sets quite the bar for you moving on to the next month.
Well, as long as Microsoft has a build-esque event every 30 days, I think I'll be good.
Maybe we can weasel something out of people by selling back the msstreams.com. Of course, I had nothing to do with that, just for what it's worth. I would never.
I want to be explicit that I'm not squatting on it. It was a funny thing, and Microsoft can have it for free. Please don't sue me.
Yeah, he's an arms guy. He doesn't do squats. So just for what it's worth. All right. So I think that's probably a good time to circle back around. And we are going to be off next week. Thanks to, I don't know, some rebels back in the 1770s, really just sticking it to the Brits. No offense to our friends over on the British Isles. That's what I was trying to get out there.
There we got there.
But we are going to stick to the weekly episode that we typically, or schedule that we typically have. So the week after the third, fourth is the fourth Monday? No,
fourth is Monday.
Yeah. So the 11th, we will be kicking off the roadmap recap and continuing on through for the month of July. And that's all I got. Sean, anything else?
That's it from me, Matt. Thank you for letting me ramble.
Yeah, no, that was great. So thank you, everybody, for watching. As always, a like and subscribe is much, 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 much appreciated. Leave that comment below to continue the discussion and take part live to ask questions as we're going through things. So like I said, we'll be off next year for the celebration of America's independence. Yes. Oh, sorry, next week. Sorry, yeah. So a little nana boo-boo to our British friends. But yeah, Sean, thanks so much for hanging out with me this week. And I can't wait to hang out with everybody again 2 weeks from now.